For most fantasy football players, Week 14 is the start of playoffs. I'm here at Jim Cramer, who's going to help us get ready. So, Jim, this is crunch time to reassess the players that you have on your roster, reevaluate anybody that you've definitely changed your mind about.
I was the winner of the regular season. 10-3, best record, also the highest point total. So I feel like I got something game here. What I am focused on is defense because I have a really most important guy for me is Jimmy Graham, tight end. It's been a great point getter, up against the Panthers D. Okay, now that's going to be very difficult. Panthers D is third in the league. San Francisco plays Seattle. Second defense is San Francisco. First is Seattle. What will that do to people who have been getting a lot of points? Marshawn Lynch, obviously Russell Wilson. So I think this is a test of quarterbacks this weekend. And I think that you're going to have to go in and be sure. I'm playing Alex Smith. I feel that Smith is starting to get a lot of game here. But go over your quarterbacks. And for defense, be careful because we're starting to get matchups. For instance, will the New York Jets just completely fold? Maybe you can play against them. What I'm looking at are specific. I'm more focused on matchups than I've ever been. And maybe that's just because the inner scrutiny of what happens at this point in the playoffs. But I say look at who they're playing because be careful. Some of these teams are already going to be in the playoffs. Maybe they don't play that hard.
Okay, so we're talking all about the matchups, and you mentioned defense. One thing that I found, Raiders defense at the New York Jets. Well, that could be a sleeper pick.
Yes, and I was taken ahead. That was my plan, was to take the Raiders because the Jets really don't have it's going to be Geno Smith, I understand, but that could be really interesting. But what made me hesitate about the Raiders was that Foles lit them up for 7 touchdowns. I was thinking Eagles defense, but then again, it's going against Megatron. And, you have Jags defense because the Texans are so bad. But these are just major considerations. Running back, not as important as wide receiver. Wide receivers are a breakout here. I've been doing a lot of wide receiver shuffling. For me, I've got a plethora of riches. I've got Lacey, I've got Stacy, I've Le'Veon Bell. I'm waiting to hear about the concussion report for Bell.
Yeah, still questionable at this point.
Yes, and Bell, the fact that Bell didn't remember the hit is very, very interesting because I'm probably going to end up playing the Steelers D. I wonder whether Tomlin affected by that $100,000 fine.
Well, and you know what? This has also been such a big year for injuries. We have a lot of big questionable names heading into this week.
Yeah.
I mean, do we stick with them as a general rule? Do we try to replace? I mean, some of these big guys, like we've got Jay Cutler, Aaron Rodgers.
I just picked up Cutler, by the way. I think Cutler comes back next weekend. I think he could be. Look, I got to get through this. I'm playing a very tough opponent, and it just worked out that my seed. I'm playing a 6 and 7 guy, but he came on very strong because he's mostly a Seattle guy, except for he's got some Broncos. And Broncos look very good. Seattle looks very tough. So I'm optimistic, but this may be my last fantasy.
Really?
Unless I go total
you're going to go out on top, it sounds like, at least.
Oh, no. I mean, I won't go out on top unless I repeat in my Super Bowl victory last year.
Oh, well, that would be too bad. But you'll have to come back next week and tell us more advice for the playoffs. That's Jim Cramer. I'm Brittany Umar for The Street.